guys, welcome back to another episode of Chili Time. I'm Jacob, sitting alongside me is Dan, and today we're going to be talking about what it was like to be a Christian in a secular school.
Yeah, so first we kind of just want to define what a secular school is. It's more commonly known as public school, but you can also find a secular school. For me, I would say some private schools you could consider to be a secular school because they're not really teaching true Christianity to true biblical lessons and teachings. And so yeah, and we understand that some of the things we're going to talk about, all these experiences may not be what you experienced, or they may be right on. We understand that some people might have good experiences as a Christian in a secular school, but these are just some of the experiences that we're going to be talking about, more on the negative side, but also some positive as well. So last week on our Instagram story, we posted a question and response and just asked people to share some experiences that they had as being a Christian in a secular school. And we're just going to talk through some of the responses that we got from people and also talk about our own experiences because we both went to secular schools. And both had different experiences. So we just want to share with that.
So one of the first responses we got was talking about how they would get weird looks while praying for their food at lunch. And I think that's, especially in a secular school, that it could be very common because not everyone is a Christian. I've definitely had that happen maybe quite a handful of times because before I got my food, or not even before, after I got my food and sat down at the lunch table, I would sit there and pray, and the people at the lunch table around me, some of them were not Christians. Yeah, sometimes I would get funny looks because I would sit down and pray, and I think that's, especially in secular school, is going to happen because some people definitely have different views as to others.
I think it's interesting, I'm happy that this person was able to at least be able to pray for their lunch and do that. But I think it's interesting for me. I can't think of a time in high school when I prayed for my over my lunch at school. We'd all go down for lunch and people would get their lunch and we'd instantly start talking. And so I guess I never really thought of praying because the norm was just sit down, start eating, start talking, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, but we should be praying for each meal. But yeah, it was interesting seeing this response. It's like I never did that, and I'm sure I would have gotten weird looks. And some of my friends who were non-Christian at my table, they would have been like, yeah, okay, we know he's a Christian, and we're gonna respect what you want to do, but we're not gonna join you. Yeah, I don't know. I wonder what would have happened if I had prayed during lunch.
Actually, you make a good point on not actually praying before lunch, because there's definitely, I was half and half in high school. I would sometimes pray for lunch, sometimes not. And I would always, as soon as you get into the lunchroom, you sometimes don't even think about it. You just go sit down and eat your food and go about your day and not think of anything of, praying for food or any of that.
Yeah, and I think part of what doesn't help in that is that most of the time you're as a Christian, you're sitting with a group of secular friends or a group of non-Christian friends, and usually when you go out for a meal and you pray, you're with a group of people, whether it's with your family at home or you're just out to eat with a group of Christians. You're all gonna pray. It's something you guys all do together. But when you're by yourself, you're the only believer at the table, it's something you do by yourself. And so I think that's something hard. You don't want to be seen as different in high school. You want to be able to fit in, and then it just becomes something that you just forget about because you're not doing it. Another one of the responses that we got, and this one rings so true to me, was just being made fun of for being a Christian and just for the beliefs that we hold and believing in Jesus and the Bible. This happens a lot. People don't understand why we believe what we believe. They don't understand um, how we can believe in a God who created everything, who loves everyone, who sacrificed his own son. No one can really understand that. And I think especially when people look at the Bible at face value, they see the Old Testament and where there are so many laws that the Israelites had to follow. They don't understand that as Christians we're not under that same covenant. So they think, oh, well, you shouldn't be eating like that, right? How does this make sense? That was like out of date. They make fun of you for whether you believe abortion is good or not. We think marriage is between a man and a woman. Saving sex for marriage. I've been made fun of for what I believe on all these things, and it does get hard on you. I had two friends in high school who I was able to, be with, and they would support me, because they're Christians as well. But not everyone has that same experience, and for some people, it's hard on them. And luckily for me, it wasn't as bad, but I did feel down, when I was being made fun of. It's like, yeah, you're saying this, but like, no, I still believe it though. Like, nothing you say is gonna change it, but you're hurting me. Like, I thought you were my friend, and that was the sad thing. It was my friends who were making fun of me for believing what I do, and that was just like, well, how are you my friend? And so, yeah, kind of just after high school, I kind of had to realize, yeah, okay, well, if you're just keep on making fun of me, and then we can't be friends, and so stuff like that happens, and yeah.
That's a tough decision to come down to that in the end, because however long you've known that person for, like, you have all those memories, and that's definitely a real tough decision.
Yeah, and I think the hard part too is that, like, even when the person who's making fun of you isn't one of your friends, then you feel more awkward. Like, you can't go talk to them and be like, hey, can you please stop? Because you feel like you don't know really who they are. If it's one of your friends, you can talk to them and be like, hey, look, I don't appreciate the way that you're making fun of me about this or treating me with this, and I did do that. But if it's someone you don't know, or are like acquaintances with, it's much more awkward to be like, hey, can you not do that, please? It really, like, it hurts me, and yeah. And I think with this, it's very one-sided in the making fun of. And I mean that as, like, if I was to go make fun of someone for believing what they do, I would then, at least in a secular school with non-Christians, I would be just, I would be the one who was in the wrong. But because I'm a Christian, they're making fun of me. From my experience, they're not in the wrong. They are right, because what I believe is countercultural, and counter-societal. And so, because of that, they're okay making fun of me and making fun of what I believe.
For me personally, I've never truly experienced being made fun of for being a Christian. I did have times where, like, if a certain topic would come up, there would be this one person that always had to chirp in towards any of the Christians in the room, and definitely, like, fight hard about that certain, like, topic. So that's, like, I never really truly experienced being made fun of for being a Christian.
And I mean, and that's something amazing, whether people just respected what you believed, or just respected that that's your belief and you're going to stick to that, and they're just going to stick to their beliefs. Hopefully that was the case, that they just respected, you that much. So on the brighter side, one response that we got was talking about Christian clubs, and FCA, Fellowship of Christian Athletes. So on any school, it is mandatory that if a club or if a school is going to deny a religious club to participate, like to be a club on their campus, they have to disband every other club, because or else that's discrimination.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
That's, wow.
When I was a freshman in high school, I wanted to start a Christian club with a friend who was a senior at the time, and we had trouble getting started, because we wanted to, in our announcement, put the name Jesus, and the woman at the desk was like, no, you can't do that. You cannot. That is not okay. So the teacher, who was actually going to be like our advisor gave me showed me articles where it said and pointed to things that said that yes, they have to allow religious, not even just Christian, but any religious club to be on campus, or else they can't have any, because that's discrimination then. And so I took that to the assistant principal, and I was like, look, you gotta allow us to be a club. And so then we're a club.
I didn't know that was that's awesome.
Yeah,
They do
I mean,
that.
it's sad that it has to come to that.
Yeah.
I would think in a world where we're so accepting and tolerant that that wouldn't have to happen. But sadly, again, it's anti-societal, anti-cultural, and so we have to. But once we got started, and it was amazing, being able to invite Christians, obviously, which was amazing to see that you're not alone in school. That's amazing with Christian clubs, because of course you're going to attract the Christian kids. And whether it's all from the same church or from many different churches, which in our case, we had people from a lot of different churches, which was great because you don't see them at church on Sunday. You see them in school, and so now bringing them all together as one was amazing. But then what the person said with this response was being able to invite non-Christian friends. And I think that's something amazing, because for the most part, most clubs and organizations will meet on school campus. And so that just makes the students feel comfortable with where they're at. So we met in a classroom. And so for students, it was just a short walk, which was really nice. So it was convenient for students. And also food kind of helped, drag students in. But
Oh, you can never deny like pizza and wings. Come on now.
Oh, well,
or even any type of food.
Yeah, well, we just had homemade cookies. But
there you go.
Yeah. And then even like Fellowship of Christian Athletes, it's amazing. And it targets athletes, which is nice because then you have a more kind of concentrated group of people. You can all just be like, yeah, we're all athletes, and connect in that way so that things aren't awkward when you first meet or whatever. And so actually in my high school, we didn't have Fellowship of Christian Athletes. We had something called Crew, or Campus Crusade for Christ, as it's more commonly known. And so we would meet like Tuesday nights, and we'd have outreaches. We had bubble soccer, which was really fun. Invited a lot of people to that. And it's really nice with Christian clubs and parachurch organizations just showing students that you can have fun at a Christian event. You don't need to go party to have fun. You can just praise Jesus and play some bubble soccer. I think that was one thing amazing that all my Christian friends at high school, we all saw through our club and through Crew. So.
This all amazes me because my school never had any of this. We had no Christian clubs or any type of clubs, religious clubs.
Mm-hmm.
So that just amazes me of how different my school is from any school really, and seeing the differences between all different schools.
Yeah, I think the biggest the hardest part of it is just the starting. A lot of people aren't that confident to begin this, and me and my friend, we did not start it on my own, or we did not start it on our own. My dad, who was involved with Crew, he helped us a lot in getting it rolled out, and so you do need help with it. You can't do it alone. But yeah, I think that's partly why a lot of these things don't happen. A lot of Christian clubs aren't created because people just don't know that they can do it, and also just are afraid to do it because they might be the only one who's interested in leading it.
Yeah, Christian club. I wish we had that in my high school.
Yeah. It's finally coming to Gordon. I was just like, we don't need a Christian club.
Yeah.
Because we're a Christian school.
Yeah. That's probably one of the nicer things, about coming to Gordon is that everybody's a Christian.
For the most part.
For the most part, everyone's a Christian. So, you don't have to be afraid to speak up about anything, really, to anyone around you. Because potentially everyone has, I wouldn't say the same views, but similar ideals.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because that kind of gets into the next question about political assumptions. So one person responded just saying how because they were a Christian, people just assumed their political views and values, what side they support. And I definitely think, at least for me, yeah, that happened a lot.
Yeah, definitely.
A good amount of it was true, depending on the issue. Other issues I'm, in the middle about. I don't have a complete standing, but it is kind of annoying when people just assume everything about you because you're a Christian.
Yeah. And to add on to that, there's now everyone is so fast and quick to judge and so short to listen.
Yeah.
And it's really hard sometimes when someone comes out and says something that assuming what you believe and judging you for it without actually listening to you for it.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's hard. In one of my history classes, we were, I forget what the time was, but going through Waco, Texas, and then whatever the bridge was, in Waco it was Christian in quotation marks, and that was the far right, and so then when people are like, oh, I'm a Christian, it's like, oh, well, you probably agree with them on the far right, that's okay. I'm like, no, just because I'm a Christian doesn't mean that I agree with everything on the right. Doesn't mean I agree with everything on the left. I think you'll definitely find Christians who are on the left and on the right, and you definitely have Christians inside of one church who think differently, who have different political views, and
oh yeah, definitely.
And that's okay. The church is diverse. The church is global. Not everyone, based on our experiences that we have different views of what is good and what is not good, or what should be done and what should not be done. And so, it's hard when people assume that you fit this one stereotype and that you agree with everything, because some things you might not.
Yeah. I know for my church back home, we're definitely a very wide, diverse group.
And so even in the church, that we also can't assume that people have the same political views that we do because we're Christian. One teacher in my high school, it was an English class, and in literature there can be a lot of analogies or symbolism for the Trinity, for Jesus, for God. And my teacher knew that I was a Christian, and whenever there was one of those analogies or symbolisms coming up, he would always ask me, okay, Erickson, what does that represent? I'm over here thinking it represents that someone's going to die. It represents that there's a color of the theme. I don't know. I'm thinking literary because we're in English class in a public school. I'm not thinking Jesus. And he would be like, yeah, it represents the Trinity. It represents Jesus. And I'm just like, okay, well, I'm sorry. And he would not make fun of me, but he would kind of call me out for not knowing that. And for me, that was really hard, because here I am, junior in high school, being called out by a teacher for not knowing my faith in terms of how it is a symbol in a book that I've never read before. That doesn't make sense. It's just
makes no sense.
Exactly. And it's just it was frustrating because it was I'm a Christian. I don't know everything. English isn't, it's my first language, but I'm not an English major. I don't understand every part of literature. Even in that class, I did not understand most of it. I had to have a lot of help to understand any sort of symbolism. And so it was frustrating over and over when that would happen, because you're not calling out someone else for not understanding a symbol that goes with what they believe. No, it's just me. And for me, that was really frustrating. So another response that we did get was talking about how this woman was a teacher, and in public schools, teachers cannot kind of profess their faith. They can present different religions in an academic way, but they can't push forward a religion. And so for Christian teachers, this is really hard. How do you fulfill your calling to be a Christian, and your calling to witness to others? And what this teacher who responded said was that she found a way to not talk about Jesus, but to show Jesus by the way that she loves her students, but also teaching them how to be like Jesus. not directly as a Christian way, being like, go evangelize to everyone and make disciples, but in being loving towards others, how to treat other people, which I think is amazing.
Yeah, that's absolutely amazing.
Like
to be able to like be that flexible and to express your faith in such a positive impact way on people and kids, especially as a teacher.
Yeah, I mean, and I think teachers have it the hardest because it is like illegal for them to do that. They can be fired for preaching like their faith or for professing their faith. But if you can find ways around that, like by just teaching them how to live good, how to live a Christ life, of how to treat people and how to love on people, like that, it's amazing, and it's a great workaround.
Yeah, we had a big issue back when I was in high school. Not an issue, but we were learning about different religions of the world. We were each, for a project, had to research on these religions. Someone went home and told their parent about it, and their parent got very upset and came to the school and said that they were forcing a religion on their child. And it was like a really big thing at the time because they wrote a lengthy letter telling, I don't even remember who it was to, I think it was to the principal, saying that this teacher was forcing a religion on their child. And it just like baffled me because we're just learning about the world religions. We're not forcing anything on each other here. We're just trying to learn because it was for a history class.
Yeah, I think that's hard. It's like, you can look at different religions in an academic way because religion is one of the big things that motivates people to do things or dictates what they're going to do. They look throughout history, a lot of like, you look at the Crusaders. They were they went and did what they did because of their religion. You look at like most Muslims who go to Mecca, they do that because it's part of their religion. And learning why people do these things they do, it's important. Especially as Christians, like to be able to understand where people are coming from if they have a different religion, that's really important. To be able to understand, yes, Jews, they believe in God, they believe that, God loves them and all that, but they're just, they're waiting for that Savior that God has promised. Being able to understand that they're still waiting, and so I think it's really important, for people to, like all people, not even just Christians, but all people to understand religions from an academic standpoint. So I mean, that's silly. Like, that's just, I don't know if that's just a student trying to get attention or what.
It wasn't even the student, it was the parent that came forward.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's just, it's crazy.
So one of the responses we got rose a pretty big question. That being said, if there was anything you regretted in high school being a Christian, and if you could go back, if you would do anything differently.
I think I'll start this off. So one regret, I think the only regret that I have, everyone knew I was a Christian and they knew that I loved Jesus and all that. They knew what I believed and like different values I have. But I think the regret I have is that I should have made what people perceived, it was more of Jesus and less of values and beliefs, because a lot of people focused on my beliefs and it was like, okay, you're a Christian, so you believe that, but it was less of, this is Jesus, he died for you. People didn't understand that from me. I think people more understood that I believe this and this. So I think that for me it's been my big regret. I have a friend who, she's a strong Christian, but her friends, like, she didn't really do much about that with her friends. And so I know that she has a lot of regret about that from high school. And now that she has really come to terms with, like, yes, like, I want to really live my life for Christ and show that to her friends. She's lost a lot of her friends, but, we're trying to show them the way. We're trying to show them Jesus. And so, you know, we're trying to help save them,
Yeah.
So if they don't want that, then that's their choice. But yeah, I mean, I think for me that's my biggest regret was not making it more about Jesus and how he saves us, and just people more understood it as I believe this and this.
Yeah, and for me, it's similar along the same lines because especially I went to a public school from kindergarten to all the way to graduation, and religions in general were pretty quiet around the school. No one really, everyone knew who was religious and who wasn't, and they kind of they kept it that way and not really talk to anyone and be more vocal about it. And that's definitely something I wish I did and I would do if I were to go back into high school. I would be more vocal and try and make more of an outreach in proclaiming the gospel.
Yeah.
And along the lines of proclaiming the gospel, I went deeper into searching throughout the Bible and we're told to be disciples. And John 15:18 through 19, it talks about where the world hates you, and even though the world hates you, it hated Jesus first.
Yeah.
Jesus was the first one to be hated. And it continues on talking about if you were with the world, you wouldn't. If you belong to, actually, word for word, if you belong to the world, it would love you as its own. As it is, you do not belong to the world, but I have chosen you out of the world. That is why the world hates you. And that one, we're called to be disciples. And again, in Matthew 28:18 through 20, we're called to be disciples. It's like bottom line, we're just called to be disciples. And then my favorite one out of the ones I've found was John 8:12. It says, when Jesus spoke again to the people, he said, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. And following Jesus gives us the ability to serve others and guide them into the light out of the darkness. And that's pretty amazing if you're able to do that.
Yeah.
And how that feels to not even I don't like using the word help. We in my social work class last semester, my professor said that she does not like to use the word help because it feels like you're doing it for someone. And she liked to replace the word help with serving others. So, and I slowly developed that term because the word help is so not strong, but just not the right word.
Yeah.
So I think serving others and after you're done fulfilling your times of serving someone else, that feeling in your heart is just amazing. And I definitely wish I was more vocal and proclaimed the gospel more in high school.
Yeah. I know most of the people listening to this right now, you guys are probably outside of high school, I'm assuming, whether you're in college or graduated from college. What does this mean for you? Yeah, I mean, you're not going to go back to high school and, be able to pray during lunch or be able to change your regrets. But, whether you have younger people in your life who you can influence, and if they're believers, just encourage them to live out their faith, no matter if they are getting made fun of or bullied for it. In the Bible it says, yeah, we're going to be hated, but that's because we're of Jesus. They hate him, and that's what the devil wants. The devil wants everyone to hate Jesus, but we can't let that happen. No. And so, yeah, just if you have people who are young in your life, just encourage them to live out their faith in high school, and just share the gospel with their friends.
All right, so thank you for listening to our second episode of Chili Time. We'll be back next week, same time, same day, with another episode for y'all. Happy Wednesday! Halfway through the week.